Hello there. I just thought I'd pop on and do a little bit of an update from my previous video with the appeal I put out. I just wanted to bring this update because there's just some more info to talk about. So I put an appeal out in my last video regarding Gerald Kendall Bingham, also known as Mark Bingham. So I've actually published an article over at my Substack trying to get to the bottom of this, because last year I came across this memorial stone which is situated at the Flight 93 Memorial Union in the city of California, USA, and it noted Mark Bingham's name as Gerald Mark Bingham. Now that was news to me, and I've been into 9/11 for quite a long time, probably over 20 years. So I'd never heard that Mark Bingham's name was Gerald Mark Bingham before. So I investigated, I wrote a couple of articles about this, and I'm just going to go through some information here. So this is since writing my previous article in August 2024. So I'm just trying to establish some facts. So I'm not advocating Wikipedia here or anything like that, but it is a mainstream database for information, so to speak. And so I thought I'd check there first regarding Mark Bingham. Now I've always been aware that Mark Bingham his full name was Mark Kendall Bingham. So I did an AI search using Google, and it threw this back here, this information. It said the passenger on United 93 was known as Mark Bingham, not Gerald Bingham. While Gerald Bingham was the father of Mark Bingham, the individual who perished on Flight 93 was named Mark Kendall Bingham. The confusion may stem from his misnomer or the use of Gerald as a middle name, as Mark was also known by his full name, Mark Kendall Bingham. So that it told me, sort of confirmed a little bit some of my knowledge that he was always known as Mark Bingham or Mark Kendall Bingham. So I was quite surprised by that. I was hoping I might get a lead. And I also did another search using the Brave search engine this time, which gave me this response below. What is Gerald Mark Bingham? So it says here, Mark Bingham's full name is often cited as Mark Kendall Bingham, but there is some confusion regarding his middle name. According to Wikipedia, his name is listed as Mark Kendall Bingham. However, in an interview with his father, a shirt indicated his name as Gerald Mark Bingham. This discrepancy suggests his middle name might have been Kendall, or he could have been named after his father, Gerald Bingham. Regardless of the confusion, he is internationally known as Mark Bingham. Again, it was, not really giving a definitive answer. I mean, I did suspect that his father's name was known as Jerry, and his name was Gerald. I thought maybe that he was named after his dad, but apparently as we go on we're going to find a little bit more. And it's highly strange, this is because apparently I did another search just to be sure. Again, this was on Google, produced this AI response. Yes, Mark Bingham's birth name was Gerald Kendall Bingham. So it goes on there, sort of confirms what I've been looking at a little bit and trying to find. It says, however, he later changed his name to Mark at the age of 10. A decision his mother, Alice Hoagland, and just to note, she changed her name from Hogland to Hoagland at some point. So just to thought I'd mention that, which I don't mention in the article. So his mother Alice supported this. He chose to be called Mark, and that's the name he went by for the rest of his life. Now, what I'm sort of gleaning from this is, and there's actually a couple of articles here which I've linked to where this is cited, and one of them is in 2001, the other is in 2015. So, again, it's saying that, okay, he's changed his name to Mark. And this was quite early on at 10 years of age. So what I'm sort of gleaning from that is that wasn't a legal decision. It was like a personal thing. But anyway, I went on to Find a Grave website, and there's a listing of Mark Bingham's father. So his grave, and his name is Gerald Warren, also known as Jerry Bingham. And in the write-up, it also refers to his son as Gerald Mark Bingham. So here we go here. Got this, and this is where it's referred to, which really sort of confirms it, although it's still not. This is still quite strange, because as we go on, I've sourced the Find a Grave, so if anybody wants to go there. So, like I say, from what we can ascertain from the research, Mark Bingham was only an alias name change, which was made on, which, like I say, is on a personal level and not on a, done legally to change his name from Gerald to Mark. Now, that's what I sort of draw from the two articles which I've read from 2001 and 2015. So I just want to get to another area, because if it's the case that there was no legal name change, his name on the flight manifests, not that he appeared on it, so I'm going to get to that point in a moment, but in official documentation he should have been referred to not as Mark Bingham, but as Gerald Bingham, or Gerald Kendall Bingham, because that is his legal name. So I looked this up, trying to find out regarding airlines pre 9/11. So even pre 9/11, be boarding the plane, you would really need your legal name and not your alias, which is, in his case, his alias is Mark Bingham, and everybody knows him internationally as Mark Bingham. So this is where the sticking point is for me, that he still would have needed his legal, what they call his legal birth name, that he was certified by, i.e. birth certificate. So, because to my knowledge he hasn't changed his name legally to Mark Kendall Bingham. It was just, like I say, a personal change of name. Now, if you've read some of my other articles, which I did, I touch on employee passes, which I'm just going to go over. I mean, even if he was on an employee pass, it says, whether it was immediate family and spouse, and often a designated companion on an employee passes. So this is what Alice Hoagland said to the FBI when she was interviewed, because what happened was, as I found out in this document here, this official document that was declassified, that a review of the flight manifest revealed there was no assignment for a passenger Mark K. Bingham. A review, of the manifest. So they're actually admitting he wasn't assigned a seat, and his name didn't show up on the flight manifest, which is correct. His name wasn't on the flight manifest. But the point here I'm making is, in this official documentation, they're referring to the passenger as Mark K. Bingham. Now, that's not his real name. It's Gerald K. Bingham, and that should have been addressed as Gerald K. Bingham, not his alias. Or it should have at least had a note regarding that. Now, in most documentation that I've seen over the years, he's always referred to as Mark Bingham. So, Alice Hoagland, by the way, as you can see here, she's saying, again, look, the name Hoagland. So she changed her name as well at some point. So, but she says that he might have been travelling on an employee pass. Now, yes, he might have been, let's say, but even when I've looked up about employee passes, they would still have to appear on the flight manifest. So it says here, in 2001, a United employee could have brought a family member along on their employee pass and their name would have appeared on the flight manifest. Most airlines, including United, allowed employees to bring their immediate family, spouse, children and parents, and often a designated companion on an employee pass. So it says here, regardless of how they were travelling, employee pass, buddy pass or a paid ticket, passenger names were included on the flight manifest. This is a standard security operational procedure for all flights. Now this is 2001, and again it admitted in this document, which I've sourced there and which I have in a paper base, this is the photograph of it. It shows that Mark Bingham wasn't A, assigned a seat, and B, his name did not show up on the flight manifest. So this is the flight manifest here, and Mark Bingham's name does not appear on it. His name should have been on that, whether, it should have been Gerald K. Bingham or Gerald Bingham, or even if he was going under his alias, perhaps his name should have been on there. So it is highly, highly strange how his name does not appear on the flight manifest. So it's a standard operating procedures, essentially. So and the thing is, which is highly strange, Mark Bingham's name only appeared in later versions used in the Zacharias Moussaoui trial in 2006. Now, they didn't actually produce like a flight manifest like we've seen there. They produced diagrams and they listed him as his alias, which was Mark Bingham, which is not his legal name. And they've throughout all the investigation was referred to as Mark Bingham, which is it's highly suspicious that it was never referred to by his legal birth name. So it's something very strange going on here. It's almost like we got two people, and we're having to take that story about him changing his name at 10 years of age. We've got no way of verifying that correctly to see whether that did happen. That could be a made up story for all I know. And if I'm honest, Alice Hoagland, she came across quite strange in a lot of her interviews. She didn't really present with grief. Yes, I know everybody's not exactly the same, but it was almost sometimes she was reading from a script and laughing, which I found highly suspicious. Some people will say, well, how do you know how a grieving person will present? I have worked in that area. I've worked with grieving people, so professionally, and I've never worked in a situation like where a grieving person is actually laughing or smiling or isn't upset or moved in some way, which is totally opposite to what we had with Alice Hoglan or Hoagland, whichever is correct. So I would say we have something very, very strange going on here, and getting to the bottom of it is quite difficult. Now I'm going to put an appeal out. If anybody knows any information about this, please get in touch, because it's not adding up, which is what is happening with a lot of the 9/11 passengers. And if you've seen any of my other articles about the Victims' Compensation Fund, also the numbers for litigation, who brought litigation against the airlines, it's very strange. Again, and who's listed in the Social Security Death Index, very, very strange. And I'm having them numbers looked at in the near future, and I'll get back to you all about that with any findings. But this, to me, is very confusing. Did Mark Bingham even get on that plane? That question has to be asked now, because there's serious doubt whether he actually boarded. We know for a fact that he was running late that day when he was dropped off by Mark Hall. And did Mark Bingham board a different plane? We've never seen him again. Was this part of a drill, an exercise? We know that United employees were having training to do with hijackings and doing exercises. We've got that on record. We've also got that from a lady who told her mum that she, just prior to 9/11, she was involved with some exercises how to deal with terrorists and hijackings. So that's an area that I'm following up. As you may know, I'm in touch with the United Airlines flight attendant as well, who actually worked a shift with the CC Lyles and the pilot, and she informed me that the pilot nor CC Lyles ever returned back to work. They were never seen again. Now, I trust this contact that I've made, because I've known her now since I think it was 2016 or 17. It's one of those years. So we're going to keep going with this, but I think there's serious doubts cast now whether Mark Bingham ever boarded Flight 93. We know, if you've read all my other stuff about Flight 93, you know all the discrepancies with the takeoff times. You can find them articles if you go on my Substack. I've done some quite detailed articles, so it's worth, if you're interested in this area of research, worth having a deep dive down there. So I'd urge everybody to do that. And like I say, anybody's got any information, please get in touch. I'd appreciate, to try and find a conclusion with this somehow. So moving on, I'd just like to bring people's attention to this article written by Jane Cena, actually linked to some of Jane's research, which she brought to light regarding reservation cancellations with flights and passengers. And it made a lot of sense with some of the passengers I had suspicions of that didn't board the plane, like Richard Ross, Alberto Dominguez, Amy Sweeney perhaps, and Alexander Filipov as well. He's another individual. I've done quite a bit of research on that, so check out that on my Substack. But just going back to this, Jane's done a pretty comprehensive article regarding Flight 77's flight path. Now, it's worth a read, and it's pretty comprehensive, and it's well written, and I think people will get a lot out of this. It's sort of reaches a similar same conclusion to myself when I've been looking into Flight 77 regarding the flight path and some of the official documents, which are very, very revealing, with what happened to Flight 77 not turning round on the Kentucky and Ohio border and continuing to fly westbound, I think it was, and did not turn round and fly back to Washington. Now, this article outlines that. It covers pretty much everything in this article, and especially regarding where it didn't make the turn here, like we've been led to believe. It carried on over into Kansas City, through Missouri into Kansas, which is something I've been writing about for a while, but this adds some more information to what we're looking at, and it like I say, it's well written. Uses the CNN here, which was played the day after. This video was something I came across actually accidentally while I was archiving some CNN footage. So, but Jane has got this version as well, which is really good because this shows it all the way here. So this is worth a look. There's the plane there, Flight 77. So this Flight Explorer is going to show the plane path not turning. Now this is from the DCC radar, which is again something I came across inadvertently a few years ago and tried to piece together some of the information that I had with Flight 77. But if you just watch closely, this plane, it sort of doesn't turn round at the border. It actually carries on. So this is something I learnt about a good few years ago now, and I've been trying to piece together official information to prove this. Now Jane's added some more in. I've never seen this version of Flight Explorer, so this element is new to me, and it's a good piece of information to have, because it shows what we were looking at. So we've got there, and that's where it ends. So it's gone. Oh, sorry, no, that's where it ends, and there, and then goes back. So it goes into Kansas and back out. So this is a good piece of information. I haven't seen that one. We've got another version here showing it, I think, westbound. Looking at that, goes off there. So this is more of an official one where they say the transponder was switched off, yet we have a better version up here from the two of the same, from the same company. So again, this is something I've written about in my own articles using this is from 9/11 maps. And if you look at the Radair's 84 flight path to the DCC radar, which was released under a Freedom of Information, they're completely different. It's just interesting that the one that's completely different with the official story was withheld, only came out under a Freedom information. So I would urge everybody to have a look through this. It's like I say, a comprehensive article. I think this particular screenshot is something I discovered as well a while ago, where they mention how to get tracking over to Missouri. Again, we've got this here. Another area. So again, it's looking like that flight 77 didn't make the turn, didn't fly to Washington, and either landed somewhere in Kansas or landed something that I've been sitting on. I have mentioned this before, but there's a good chance from other areas I'm looking into that it could have possibly landed at near St. Louis at Lambert International Airport. And just to back this up, I have a photo here. This is taken on 9/11, and I know this airport had on the BTS, I think there was 12 flights from American Airlines, and out of all these planes that were lined up, we have the one American Airlines, and this seems to fit the same model, same colours as Flight 77, which we know flew over St. Louis Airport at some point, or flew near, when it was flying through Missouri onto Kansas, and then flew back before it changes direction again and then disappears off radar. Now, it's just a possibility it could have landed at St. Louis. We have a photo here. Yes, it's difficult to prove, but it's very strange how we got all these TWA flights and we have just this one American Airlines sat there on the runway. And from what I've looked into, it wasn't its designated area where it should have been at that particular gate. As I say, it's sat round where there's TWA gating area and pushing off. So again, tied with that is another strange incident which I'm just going to mention here regarding Ayub Ali Khan and Mohammed Jawed Asmath. Now these two individuals were arrested on a train in Texas after their flight, apparently from New Jersey to San Antonio, was diverted to St. Louis Airport, or Lambert Airport, I should say, in St. Louis. Now, apparently they were carrying box cutters and large sum of cash, and I have read other reports where they'd shaved all their body, which is to do with very similar to what they mention about alleged hijackers, I should say. So apparently these were tracked down. This very, very strange story, but they fled from St. Louis onto a train heading to Texas. Now there's another area with this where they say, in some reports it said that they was on American Airlines Flight 43. Now, American Airlines Flight 43 never did take off, but apparently that plane was due out of Boston, apparently. But something was going on, I believe, at St. Louis Airport. Now, whether this was a training drill or something else going down, or perhaps these people have been set up, part of, agents, but they was let go in the end. Or wasn't, well, say let go, they wasn't charged to do with terrorism. It was more to do with immigration. I mean, these guys had $5,600 worth of cash. They had box cutters. Like I say, they'd shaved much of their body hair. So this is a very strange case. So it's worth noting about that case because St. Louis Airport has been off the radar for a lot of people. I'm very suspicious of this case with these two individuals, especially with all the exercises going on. I do have some more information about Delta Airlines. As we know, Delta Airlines was going to take part in Amalgam Virgo, a live fly hijacking, with FBI as agents, like hijackers, and including actors and real pilots from Delta Airlines. So I just thought I'd mention that. Now, I am looking into this. I have been for a while. I do feel it's linked to somehow to 9/11, and it just does strike me strange how Flight 77 passes over that area, goes into Kansas, sort of comes back, and then sort of goes off radar, I think, in Kansas. But that's not to say that it did land in Kansas. There's a high probability it did, but there's also some circumstantial evidence with these alleged, what would have appeared terrorists who fled from St. Louis area, Lambert International Airport. So that's all I have on that for now. I'm still working on a lot of that stuff, so it's worth looking up and finding out about that. It's a very strange case, same as we had Flight 23 as well, which didn't take off. So it seems a bit blurry that they could have been, they had these people locked up. The story not quite straight, but these two individuals could have been maybe part of an operation of some kind, whether it's a terrorist drill and something's gone wrong and they've fled. So like I say, so we'll keep our eye out on that. Like I say, go and see this article, worth a read. Like I say, I did do an American Airlines Flight 77 on my old blog back in 2020, and there's an interesting area as well about the positional gate area, so where the plane doesn't seem to appear to have pushed back from gate D26. That's something I mentioned in my earlier articles, so you may want to have a read of that one. I'll cover the passengers in there as well, and Marie Ray Soper, cover that. Now I'll cover the discrepancy with Flight 77 not taking off and the BTS. There's also some ACARS data there that I'll cover. Very strange. Again, I show the Flight Explorer a bit there, and then I've got this one here, which was where I found out it was over St. Louis, Missouri and Kansas. And this is an old one. I've updated this since, which is on my Substack, and you've got Reagan National Airport just over the way. Now I just want to get to this point, is it's interesting to note, which not many people know, that there was a plane flight which was American West Airlines, which landed at Reagan National Airport, which is just across the way from the Pentagon, and its tail number was N644AW, which is very similar to AA-77's tail number, which was N64AA. Now, in the BTS, it shows that that particular plane, which was a Flight 98 by the way, landed at 9:39 at Reagan National Airport. So I just thought I'd mention that, because that could be whether they operated a swap or a flyover, and it, like I say, its arrival at Reagan there at 9:39. So maybe worth a read, because that other plane took off from there Did it fly in and land? Possibility. I just thought I'd mention that. Anyway, I'm not going to ramble on anymore. Check out my Substack. Check out Jane's article. Like I say, give me a like, subscribe, whatever at YouTube. I'm still operating on these links here. You can see on my YouTube. Catch me over at Twitter or X. And if anybody's got any information about Gerald Kendall Bingham, as also known as Mark Bingham, please get in touch, because we need to get to the bottom of this, and we need to get to the truth, because I don't feel we've been told the truth about any of it. So I'll leave it there for now, and big shout out to all my subscribers and all the new subscribers. I appreciate it a lot. So I'll catch you again soon with another update, and look after yourselves and have a good day. Bye all.